I don't think right-wing social engineering is any more desirable than left-wing social engineering. So there are things you can do to improve Medicare.
But not what Paul Ryan is suggesting, which is completely changing Medicare.
I think that is too big a jump.
We're back. That was Newt Gingrich driving himself right into a ditch last month. He later apologized to Congressman Ryan and then denied he was ever talking about Paul Ryan in the first place. Oh, Newt. Newt's not the only one struggling with a Medicare message mess. A new Bloomberg poll shows just how much trouble the House Republicans stirred up by passing Paul Ryan's budget plan that would end Medicare as we know it. 57% of Americans say the plan would make them worse off than they are now. 55% say a candidate's support for that plan makes the idea of voting for that candidate less attractive. And on a personal level, Congressman Ryan has a net negative rating now. 26% unfavorable and 23% favorable. Maybe the only bright spot there is that 51% of us still don't know who he is. Did Republicans really shoot themselves in the foot on this one? The Huffington Post's Alex Wagner is an MSNBC political analyst, and Josh Marshall is the founder and editor of Talking Points Memo. Josh, I've been saying that this is an historic, gigantic political blunder by the Republicans, tipping their hand to the fact that they still want to destroy Medicare. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, the polls speak for themselves. You see it's already gotten a lot of attention out in, districts around the country. The big question in my mind is how much the Democrats are really going to grab onto it, both as a substantive policy issue, but also as a political issue. And you see, going back to your last segment in those budget negotiations, one of the things that's not being talked about that much is that what Republicans are trying to do is they're trying to force the Democrats to sign on to not exactly the same kind of Medicare cuts, but substantial Medicare cuts themselves. And if they do that, then the issue politically will be really blunted. And Republicans have a big political motive to getting some big Medicare cuts into whatever this global debt deal is, because, again, then they will be sort of off the hook going into 2012 about passing this Ryan budget, which, as you said, basically ends Medicare altogether.
Alex, as Josh suggested, is that the way that the Democrats will snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here by agreeing to ill-considered Medicare cuts that the Republicans will then turn around and blame them for in the next election, even though the Republicans insisted on the cuts in the first place?
It's political chess, and there is absolutely a long time between now and 2012, and the Democrats have done themselves disservice before, but I think it's inarguable to say that, President Obama accused the GOP of driving the country into a ditch. Well, right now, the Republicans are driving themselves into a ditch, much like you said earlier at the top of the show. This is I think you have to compliment the Democrats on the fact that they moved very quickly on messaging with this. As soon as that budget was passed, it was really swift, really severe messaging around what the Republicans had planned vis-a-vis Medicare. And I think, it comes as no surprise that the country's upset and angry about this. But I think the telling part is that independents are really looking at this as a bad thing. You have not only independent support for Democrats handling Medicare, but you have general support for Obama's health care plan, and now you have really unfavorable numbers as far as what Ryan's trying to do with Medicare.
Alex, Josh, for your edification, here's Donald Trump on the House Republicans' plan a couple of weeks ago. Everybody's getting in on this.
Paul Ryan's plan, the timing of this plan was so bad. I happen to think the concept was bad also. It almost seems as though the Republicans have a death wish. When they tamper with Medicare, which happens to be a good program, but there's lots of fraud and waste, which we should take care of. But when they tamper with Medicare, they have a death wish. This is not going to happen. And frankly, I would protect Medicare. It's not going to happen. You can't win an election if you're going to be playing games with Medicare.
Josh, do the Democrats really have to do too much to capitalize on this? Even Republicans are, trashing Ryan's plan. Can they just kind of stand out of the way and let the Republicans shoot at each other? To a significant degree, yes. But politics is not an engine that runs of itself. You really do have to make the case, and separate from that, again.
if Democrats get hoodwinked into passing really huge Medicare cuts themselves, that will genuinely sort of make it not a clear issue. The Democrats aren't going to be in much of a position to say that the Republicans want to end Medicare if the Democrats have just signed on for dramatic cuts to Medicare. I mean, you know, you need a message that's somewhat coherent. Having said all that, look, this isn't rocket science. It shouldn't surprise us. Medicare is an extremely popular program. That's not always clear inside Washington. But again, this is sort of like, you know, coming out with a plan to get rid of apple pie. It's only surprising inside Washington, D.C. that you pass a bill with, you know, a few minutes of debate that ends Medicare. Even the ends Medicare as we know it is sort of a, you know, excessive rhetoric. It gets rid of Medicare, which is a single-payer plan, and gives you vouchers. That's ending Medicare. It shouldn't surprise us that overwhelmingly the public is against it.
It turns out that people actually like their socialized medicine. Here's a little bit more from the Bloomberg poll. 2/3 of the American public favor means testing to preserve Medicare. About half favor new limits on Medicare coverage, and 41% favor higher payroll taxes here. Guys, and Josh, to you first. I'm always struck when we have these discussions about Medicare that it seems to start with money. You know, well, how much is this going to cost? And are patients using too much medical care and things like that? Should that be the first question we ask when we're talking about health care in America? Or should the question be more, how do we provide all our citizens with state-of-the-art health care?
I think it has to be both. I mean, I don't think there's any question that this is, you know, it has to be partly about money. I think the issues are, you know, really how much the risk and the burden is spread out through society, both on the revenue side and on the use side. You know, I don't think the money issue is one we can ignore. The real, you know, there's a difference between Medicare and Social Security in terms of the national budget. Medicare really is growing very quickly, and the reason is not so much Medicare. Healthcare costs are growing that quickly, and it really does endanger the whole national economy. The question is whether you can come up with ways to, as the policy geeks say, you know, bend the cost curve, get it to not grow quite as quickly. And if you want to talk about something that a national challenge, a challenge a country really does have, that's one of them right here. Just taking it and you know, sort of fobbing the costs all off on people over 70, that's just ducking the real issue.
Mm-hmm. Alex, a quick last word. We've got 10 seconds.
Well, I think what this does is it forces the larger conversation about the American Social Compact, and that's something where Democrats are going to stand really strong in a period of high unemployment and economic woes. You know, this is good for them.